Hello everyone, my name is Maryliz Biobwa. Thank you so much for clicking this video. If you're a new subscriber, if you're a new viewer, thank you so much for coming on here. If you've not subscribed, please consider to subscribe. If you have been here watching but not subscribing, also consider subscribing. And to my returning subscribers, those that have subscribed, those have been OGs since day one, thank you so much for coming back again. I really appreciate that. Today on the video that we're going to film, we're going to speak about consent, and I feel like it will be a disservice on my part if I don't speak about consent, because a lot of things happened to me in the year 2021 that really not change my views about consent, but broadened my perspective about consent. And so I feel the need to speak about that, and for the one purpose really, which is most of the time we sort of have conversations about, consent, conversations about sex and sexuality, but mostly for heterosexual people, cis heterosexual people. And I feel like when it comes to the subject of consent, first of all, it's not a regular subject. Not many people speak about consent. And then the second perspective of it is even so little when it comes to people in the LGBTIQ community, because the assumption is just because, for example, it's two men who are dating or it's two women, then chances of abuse reduce. But that's not true. Levels of abuse remain the same, because an abuser is an abuser regardless of the relationship they are in. And so that kind of made me feel the need to speak about consent, but also for the purposes of education. If anyone bumps into this video, then they can be able to have a perspective of what consent is all about. And disclaimer, I'm not saying I'm an expert in that. I'm just saying I'm gonna use, one, my experiences, two, things that I've had, things that I've interacted with that don't necessarily have to be my story, and three, my general perspective about consent and how that has either impacted my life positively or negatively. And moving forward, what are some of the lessons that I've picked along the way. So pick what you can pick. If it's something you learn that you find interesting, take your time to be able to interrogate and find out, and then read up. I always encourage people to go online. There's always material. It's upon you to decide which material speaks to what you're trying to see. It's also upon you to decide what information is not good for you to consume. So that's purely on you. But for me, my hope is that with all that I share today, I can be able to, successfully say that I helped someone have a better understanding, or if they didn't understand at all, then have an understanding of what consent is. So we'll start with a backstory. I feel like when we speak about consent, there are many things we forget. There are many things we forget, like, for example, we think consent is, if I say right now, I want to have sex with you, people have this way of looking at consent from an infinity perspective, that if I say I want to have sex with you today, the assumption is I want to have sex with you all the time. And there's a lot of things wrong with that perspective, because we are human beings. It's not all the time that a person will be ready and wanting to have sex. More so, it's not always that a person would be ready and wanting to have sex with you in particular. And hence, one of the things we need to understand and grasp completely is the fact that consent is something that has to constantly keep on being given, regardless of whether you've met this person today, regardless of whether you've known this person for 5 years, regardless of whether you've been married to this person for 20 years. It's very fundamental to note that when it comes to consent, every time you want to engage in sexual activities with someone, it's very important you seek consent. And yes, when you are dating someone, when you've known someone for a while, you have these ways you've created in which, either non-verbal cues and all that. And it's amazing. It takes a lot of, being with someone, hanging out with someone, knowing how to understand someone, knowing how to read someone's body and understand, even when there's no verbal consent, there are things you can look and understand from the perspective of your benefit and their benefit as well, that either they're consenting or not. But those are things that happen way later in a relationship. for beginners, for people who are in relationships and they're beginners, it's very, very fundamental to always constantly keep on asking for consent. It may look like it's a tiresome thing, but when you shape yourself and get used to asking for consent is very sexy, because then you are with someone who enthusiastically also wants to be with you. Consent has to be, it's like, let's just get this out of the way. Sex is something that is fun, right? When you're having sex, you're having a good time. When you ask someone to have sex, at least I'm sticking to my statement, sex is about a good time. If it wasn't good, then it's no longer sex, it's something else. It has different names that are pretty much about abuse and all that. And if those are some of the topics you feel like I should speak about, please feel free to leave a comment down below letting me know if you want me to dive deeper into subjects about abuse and terminologies we use when it comes to abuse and what results to what abuse and all that kind of stuff. I'll be happy to read about it and then come and do a video about it. But yeah, sex is when two people are enthusiastically, two or more, because again, it could be if you're in, for example, a polyamorous relationship, if you're having a threesome or an orgy and all that. However the number of people are involved, as long as the number of people involved are open to having, you know, that sexual activity, not only are they open, but they've enthusiastically consented to it, they are happy to engage in it, you know, and it's verbal. It's very, very important, especially for new experiences, for people you've just met and you're getting to know and all that. It's very, very important that consent is verbal. It's very, very important that consent is not from a point of you ask someone, they say no, and then you keep on insisting, because when you keep on insisting, you've already crossed the line of them consenting and you coercing them. And so we need to really, really understand that, unpack that, and process that, because I feel like with the work that I do, yeah, as an LGBTIQ rights activist and someone who really just works within the human rights movement and tackling issues like gender-based violence and all that, whenever I've dealt with cases of gender-based violence within the queer community, most of the time the kind of abuse people experience is coercion, where someone will say no, but another person will keep on insisting, and this person will keep on insisting until the other person feels like this is a nuisance, so let me just say yes to get it out of the way. And I need you to understand, and I'm not going to sit here and say you're an abuser or whatever the circumstance. That's upon you to decide. It's upon you to call yourself to a meeting and, you know, do an introspection and try to find out if it feels like you abuse someone. It's very, very important that you look back and you sit with yourself and you ask yourself, have I been the kind of person who has, one, respected people's boundaries, two, been the kind of person who asks for consent during sex, being the kind of person who respects people when they say no. And I think that really catapults me to my second point. My second point is about, you know, when a person says no. And there's a personal story hidden in it. I'm not going to give a lot of details about it. I just want to share that it's very, very important. When someone says no, you let them be. When you want to have sex with someone, there's nothing wrong with wanting to have sex with someone. There's everything wrong with now pushing someone to have sex with you just because you want to have sex with them. But you wanting to have sex with them, there's nothing wrong with it. And asking them whether you can have sex with them is the right thing to do. However, when you ask and the first answer is no, there's nothing like women say no when they mean yes. There's nothing like that. And I've also had some studs make those kinds of reference. Some, generally just queer people, make those kinds of reference. It is wrong. It is wrong to try and have sex with someone when you ask them if you could have sex with them and they said no the first time. The first time is enough. That one time is enough. And if you are someone who you are interested in this person and you're getting to know them, that in itself is maybe an indication that they're not interested, and so you should leave it at that. Because, and I'll speak about this at a later time in this video, because most of the time, and we don't recognize it because we've grown up. Heteronormativity, patriarchy has taught us that, and we learn this from a very heteronormative way, from how cis heterosexual men do things, that if they tell a lady they like her and the lady says no, they have to keep on insisting. And I spoke about this subject briefly on Instagram. Let me try and retrieve this post, and hopefully you all can go to my Instagram. Shameless plug, my Instagram, Merilis_Biubwa. Please go find me and interact with some of my posts. I normally bring all these subjects sometimes from time to time on my timeline. So if you can be able to interact with them, feel free. Go and interact with them and learn a thing or two. There's a post I made not long ago. I'm trying to look for it. And I'll read from the post. It says, while we are on the unlearning toxic behaviors curve, loving the chess is toxic. It is founded on the patriarchal idea that when a woman says no, she actually means yes, so keep insisting. It hugely breaches consent of pursuit and sold as a way of showing love. Many times we've been programmed by patriarchy to think when someone says no, they actually mean yes, they're actually authorizing us to chase. And with this, you're breaching the whole perspective of consent, because immediately someone says no, it means they're not interested. As in, no means no. There's no two ways of looking at the word no. No is a complete sentence. It doesn't need to be explained. It doesn't need to be broken down. It's very, very fundamental to understand when someone says no, they've said no. And with patriarchy, that's where we've also been taught that when someone says no and you continue chasing them, eventually they'll give in, and them giving in is a reward to you. Them loving you after chasing them for long is a reward to you. It's interesting because even with my interaction with people, I'm the kind of person who, when I like someone, I go and tell them. When they tell me they're not ready, when they tell me they don't feel the same, when they tell me, there's probably maybe they've just come out of another relationship and they're still dealing with that and all that. For me, I go. You know why? Because my view is always, if I've told you I like you, and you wanted maybe time because you're dealing with other things and all that kind of stuff, when you're done dealing with those things, it's you to come to me and check and be like, so I'm done dealing with all those things I was dealing with, and I think I kind of like you too. I can't keep checking, because immediately I come back to check and all that, it will mean I didn't understand what you said, and it will mean I'm pressuring you to get over whatever it is that you were dealing with. Or then on the flip side, it will mean I didn't respect the fact that you said no and I keep on insisting. So it's very, very fundamental to look at these things from this perspective. Like someone, cool. You are lucky if you can genuinely just feel love for people, because many people don't know how to go about just feeling love. Like purely just loving someone because you love them, not because there's an intention behind it, not because there's a malicious reason behind it, just because you love them. It's very, very beautiful that you can be able to feel that. But it's even more beautiful if you can be able to feel that and understand just because you feel it doesn't mean other people feel it towards you. And that's absolutely okay. So that is something we need to note. Going on with the post that I had made, for those that enjoy being chased, the idea is that it is a way to prove someone really wants you. A person who really wants you has to just say it, and if you say no, they're supposed to move along. Immediately you say no, they're supposed to move along. The culture of people saying no to see how much will the other person prove that they want me. Wanting to be chased is toxic. It's you showing. First of all, there's a sense of not knowing your worth, because if you know your worth, when someone asks you out, you're already supposed to see, I'm the prize. I'm good enough for this person. And if I like them, I'm supposed to say yes. But immediately you're saying no, but you want to be chased, it will mean, first of all, you don't have much belief in yourself as an individual. You don't think you deserve love. You don't think, from the word go, a person can just see you and they can, feel those feelings for you, and that's absolutely okay. So that's another perspective also. It's trauma related, it's patriarchal values related, it's a lot of things intertwined, and you have to sit and unpack that why do you like when someone tells you they like you? Why do you embrace or romanticize the idea of saying no so that they can chase you? Because there's a lot more that goes into why you feel that way. And while you can change your mind on someone you like, it's okay to also say no to someone and then later on you change your mind. When you do, the role transfers to you, telling them that transfers to you to tell them that you like them. And it doesn't automatically mean when you tell them you like them, they will still be there liking you. Chances are it will happen. But if it doesn't happen, that's absolutely okay. In fact, it's actually a 50-50 chance. They told you they like you, you said no, they moved along. You sit with your feelings, or after they told you they like you is when now you started kind of observing them, following them on social media and seeing what the vibe is all about, and then you find out you actually like them. That's a beautiful thing. You're the one to go to this person and tell them, I actually feel like the reason I said no the first time is because I didn't know anything about you and I didn't have those feelings, but eventually I feel like those feelings are developing. And when you tell them that, that doesn't mean they owe it to you to say, yes, I'm glad you came, right? That could be a response. 50% chance it could be a response. Another 50% chance is that they could say, no, I don't feel the same way, I moved on. In fact, maybe I'm already in a relationship, or I'm not even looking to be in relationships right now. I'm at a different stage altogether. It's your duty to tell them. It's your duty to also understand they can say that, and that's absolutely okay. And then while on that post still, and on rejection, people then feel rejected because acceptance is a patriarchal reward for chasing. When you chase someone, there's an unspoken code of, because I'm chasing, you have to say yes. And if you say no, then people begin feeling rejected. Because when you come to me the first time and you tell me you like me, and I tell you I don't like you, there's no rejection. A person who doesn't, you reject people, you reject things, you reject situations, circumstances you've been in. You only reject something you've known. Am I making any sense? But it's not rejection if you told someone you like them and they told you they don't like you back. They just don't like you back, and that's it. But because you romanticize the idea of chasing someone, the more you chase, the more you feel entitled. And so when they say no, you feel rejected. And when you think about it, from the word go, if someone tells you no, it's not rejection, but continuing to chase results to emotional investment. And finally, when you can't get the person you want, you feel rejected. I am not an expert, but let's pursue love and relationships in a healthy way. Very, very important. Consent contributes hugely to how healthy the kind of relationships you engage in are. It's very, very important to respect people and their boundaries. It's very, very important to engage in any kind, be it you being attracted to someone, be it sexual activities, be it touch. People don't recognize, and I feel like when I speak about touch, I'll go a bit deeper into it and how a lot of us experience abuse, but we never really know how it is abuse, because we feel like makangas, for example, are entitled to touch us. Human beings respond to touch. The way human bodies are created, they respond to touch. And of course, it can be a good response or a bad response. Bad response depending on the circumstances. And the circumstances are informed by whether you consented or not. And most of the time when you're walking around town, hawkers, matatu touts, and sometimes drivers, and conductors, they touch you without consent. And it's very, very irritating. For me, I think I have a weird relationship with touch. I don't enjoy touch that is unconsented. I don't enjoy touch from people I do not know. I'm very particular. I like being touched, but I like being touched by people, 1, I know well, 2, I can trust, 3, I'm in a relationship with. Like, there has to be building blocks towards who touches me and who doesn't. And so most of the time when you're walking in town, hawkers, and these people, you don't know them. They're just doing their work. You're minding your business. And I feel like Nairobi has a system, for example, Nairobi and the whole country really has a system where we have number system for matatus going to different places. We have the stage system where different matatus are taken at different stages so people know. And I don't understand the whole concept of people touching people, because I'm like, I know where I'm going, you don't know where I'm going. Why are you coming to touch me to tell me where you want me to go? It doesn't make sense. And so those are some of the things that we need to eventually unpack when it comes to consent, and how things can end up escalating from that alone. So it's very, very important. Another thing to note when it comes to consent, and I think this is heavy because it's almost as if it's emotions that I'm still processing when it comes to consent. It's something that happened, and I feel like these are some of the real life circumstances that we need to bring to the table when we are speaking about consent. When you are dating someone, when you're in a relationship with someone, especially a sexual relationship, it doesn't matter if it's a long-term relationship. It doesn't matter if it's just you agree to be having sex, and as long as you're having sex with this person, I feel like it's very, very important, one, to be able to pay attention to how they verbalize consent. A lot of things contribute to how consent will either be given, withdrawn, or not given at all, right? I'm speaking this from a point of I'm having very new experiences, especially since I've been sick. And since I've been sick, my sickness is very particular. First of all, my tummy is constantly in pain. There are very little, I can count the times I wasn't in pain. I can also, and I think this is another subject, if you feel like you want me to do a breakdown on how contraceptives affect female bodies, and I don't want you to think contraceptives from a point of getting pregnancy. I want you to think generally contraceptives, because you'll be surprised at how much use there is for contraceptives when it comes to female bodies, and how we don't speak much about that. We only zero in on pregnancy prevention, which is one of the ways, but it's not the only way. And there are people who use contraceptives all their lives, not because they're not trying to be pregnant, but because they have lifelong conditions that they have to use contraceptives for. So if you want me to have that subject, please let me know. But also, if you want me to have a topic about how contraceptives affect women and their sexual life, also let me know. One of the things that I have grown significantly in terms of my body adjusting, but at the beginning it was, and for a while I hadn't even figured it out. My doctor, thank you so much, Dr. Bosire, my doctor really highlighted how those effects would happen from the beginning, even before I started the treatment. And one of the ways in which contraceptives affect you is contraceptives deal a blow on your libido. It could be one way or the other. Some people, it makes their libido go higher, so they become a tad more sexual than they were before they started contraceptives. And then some people become less and less sexual compared to how they were before they started contraceptives. I was the latter. It affected me, so I think pain, because I have this fear of my stomach area being touched, first of all, because after I went through surgery in 2010, it was weird. People will somehow, their hands, you never really notice how people are all up in your space until when you have had a surgery and you can't allow someone to come close to your stomach. And some of the instances where I was hurt are people who kind of forget that I had surgery. So I have that fear of, touch around my stomach and all that. Now, when I got diagnosed, and with the pain that was happening, I had been in pain even before the diagnosis, and I experienced a lot of pain. So that pain, that's one. And then add that with, libido that has lowered because of contraceptives. And I think one of the things that I learned that time is that, some people just don't know how to respect consent. And it was a difficult thing for me. It was a difficult thing for me because when you can't respect consent, there's a very thin line between not respecting consent and being an abuser altogether. And I remember just that time I was in a relationship, and I struggled so much in that relationship because it's almost as if my not even complaints, they were not complaints, my sentiments about how I felt and how all these things affected me were not taken into consideration. And so I ended up in a situation where, regardless of how much I kept on saying, you know, I'm not at that capacity to actively, and which is why I think I'm having this topic about consent in general, really. We all deserve to be in relationships, and these are words of my gynecologist. We all deserve to be in relationships with people who can understand us. Yes, you can be loved, that's beautiful, right? You can be taken care of, that's beautiful. But if you can't be understood, then it's all not worth it. Because when you're understood, it will mean when you're speaking about things like this to a partner, they can be able to understand that it's not just about you saying, you know, I am unwell or whatever. It's them even taking time, one, to read up about the situation, two, to be able to ask questions to understand, not ask questions to invalidate your experience. And for me, I went through a lot of that, a lot of invalidating. And I don't want to go into details of it because I'm just realizing right now I'm still really much triggered by that whole subject. And that's absolutely okay. But yeah, it's very, 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 very fundamental that we really ensure we uphold consent. We ask for consent. When we are given consent, we listen to how we are being given consent, because consent can also be withdrawn. It's how I can want to have sex with you right now, but when we start having sex, I'm in pain. I can withdraw consent. Be the kind of person who looks at consent from a point of, I'm glad you told me, because if you hadn't told me and you kept quiet, I'd be having sex with someone who was not into it, but they were just into it to see the end of it. It was a means to an end. And nobody, I feel like, as a grown-up who has taken time to understand pleasure, to understand what pleasure is to them, to understand how I receive and experience pleasure, one of the things that I have grown into and really become fond of is how I experience pleasure with people. I want it to be the best, and the only way it can be the best is if I keep checking if we are okay with what we are doing, if I ask consent before engaging in anything, if I make it open and safe enough for someone to be able to say, you know, this is happening and I'm not liking all this subject, and like all those things. Because when you make it comfortable to speak about those things, it's when it's easy for your partner, for your partners, for people you're having sex with to be able to say, you know, this is happening and I don't feel comfortable. I feel like we should do. It even opens room for people to have conversation about, okay, what can work, what can't work for us, and all that. And I think with that experience alone, I learned how important consent is for me. And I learned how then communication is important for me. And yeah, initially I used to be the kind of person who said, you know, I don't like people who don't communicate well, and then I'd go back and compromise on that. But I think after that I learned I can't compromise on communication. I have not really a structured way on which I look at what good communication is, but I have a way in which I look at what good communication is, and I make sure to communicate that to people that I like, people that I'm getting to know, people that I get into a relationship with. And immediately I feel like that was not upheld at any stage. It could be right at the beginning of getting to know someone. It could be 10 years after getting to know someone. Immediately I pick on that, I get out of there. I'll not wait a day longer, because it's when all these things you can communicate to someone who is your partner, but they don't listen, they don't pay attention, and then eventually those become the very place that abuse crops from. It could be abuse from you even, because you might feel frustrated because you're talking to someone who doesn't understand you, and the only way to retaliate is to be abusive towards them, right? And so to avoid all that, to avoid bad energy, to avoid being in a situation where I compromise my personal peace, my personal space, my personal ability to give consent, to withdraw consent, to, you know, to not give consent and everything, then I say goodbye to that and I leave it as soon as I can. This is a topic that can always go on and on and on. There are very many dynamics that I've not covered, but the video is very long and my videos are uncut, so even if there's editing, there's little to no editing done. I try my best as much as possible to be as unfiltered as possible. And so I'm gonna stop this video here, but please, if you watch this video entirely, if you got here, please leave a comment down below telling me what are some of the things, one, you've picked up from the subject, but also two, are there perspectives about consent that you would want us to dig deeper about? Are there questions you have about consent? Are there worries that you have about consent that you'd want me to answer? Leave them in the comment section. If it's something I can answer in a comment, I will. If it's something I'll have to do another video on, I promise I will do a video. But thank you so much for watching. Again, if you're clicking on this channel for the first time, welcome to B1 Cat Gang, and please consider subscribing to my channel. If you're not new, if you're a returning subscriber, I'm very, very grateful. Share with your friends, get as many people as possible to subscribe to my channel. Good things are coming into the channel, and so subscribe and stay here, and let's enjoy this ride together. Again, on my channel, we speak about activism, feminism. We educate each other about mostly women, children, and LGBTIQ rights. We speak about how we can be able to become better human beings and foster better relationship. We speak about the oppression we face as people in the LGBTIQ community, as women and as children. We speak about all these subjects that do matter when we speak about equality and equity. And so I'm happy to have you aboard. I hope you get to stay here, and I hope you enjoy your ride here. And let me know, comment video ideas that you'd want me to do. Sometimes we have fun too, so if you have a fun video idea that you think I should do, please let me know, and I'll be happy to do the video. Until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I love you so much. Bye.